So hello, how are you guys doing today? I'm very happy to be
Excellent.
here over here in this conversation. It's fantastic. As an engineer as well as a company owner, I want to bring a topic that I like a lot, which is research and development. Not only my companies, but every company should have a research and development division, department, or however you want to call it. I wanted to hear your opinion on this and how you think this could help other companies.
So I've been working in R&D and the R&D to technology transition space for, 40 years, working mainly with the microelectronics industry, but with other industries as well. And what I found is when companies have an R&D function, they're really thinking about the problems that they're having in their company more deeply. The engineering challenges, sometimes even supply chain challenges as well. And so having the R&D there, I think, takes us away from just worrying about today's problems, but we also then think about what we know we're going to have to deal with tomorrow.
Right, so you're talking about research and development of our current issues to optimize and then our future opportunities, maybe?
Absolutely, both of them, because when we're doing production, there are always issues that come up, and I think there's a tendency to just you try and fix it. But what R&D means to me is that we understand the basics, the reasons why things are going wrong, and then try to fix them at their source rather than always trying to put what we would call a Band-Aid on it. So it gives us more of an ability to control our environment and also to look at what we're manufacturing in a completely different way.
Okay, so if we were to do an analogy between personal search or education and then R&D in a company, can they relate? As a human being, we always try to keep going to school, keep learning. Can a company use research and development to keep learning about a company as well as about their consumers and their products?
Oh, absolutely, because I think we always have to be creating new technologies or new models of technology. I mean, I'm thinking here, things like quintessential the iPhone. Mm-hmm. They are always working on 3 generations of iPhones because
At the same time.
At the same time,
Oh my God.
always at the same time.
Okay.
And each time they're bringing in new technologies, new computer chips, new potentials. And I don't know if you remember the iPhones of a few years ago, the cameras were not so good. Now the cameras are amazing.
Yeah.
And our ability to have features that we never had before. Well, I think it's important for us to think about those when we have other kinds of companies that we see those opportunities. There's also an issue of quality. So I think of quality as being really, really important as we're moving forward. It's what we build our company's reputation on.
Yeah, of course. I was thinking, in this R&D areas, you must have at least scientists or people from the academy. But the language and the vision of a lot of industries in the world, sadly, don't have the same approach to the academy or the scientists. So that differentiation create a huge gap in terms, at least here in Colombia or in developing world, not easy. It's not something easy to find some conversations, some projects, some dialogues between those worlds. Could you give us a bit more about your experience creating that kind of trust between both worlds?
Well, first of all, I think it really reflects what your basic values are. So I like to see things be put into action, to affect people's lives, and to see people using various things. So it takes a bit of a risk because for some universities, their primary way of rewarding success is professors have papers in really excellent journals, and you get invited to give talks, and it's a very basic science approach. And what I find in engineering, particularly at Purdue, where I am, is that we have both the fundamental science, but then we also have this culture where we want to see these ideas come to life. And so it requires us to build these bridges, but with the companies, to show we can listen to what their real problems are and to help them investigate what the problems are. Because sometimes they don't know what the problems are. They just know they have this problem, but they don't know necessarily how to fix it. So when you were mentioning trust, it's very important because they need to understand that we actually see them. We're there for them, and we're willing to help, and we're willing to basically share the best of our knowledge and abilities to solve it.
So to bring back the industry and now the institution, thank you for the introduction of the institutions. That is fantastic. Are you guys listening to the companies and their needs, or bringing and finding companies that can help you to bring your visions or your research out into the market?
So we do both. So sometimes we'll start on a project where we see the potential of a new material. I'm a material scientist, so I make and design new materials for new opportunities. But then people see that, the companies see that, we make sure that they've heard about it, but then they come to us and say, will you help us actually really dig into these new materials and alloys that we've been developing? Can you help us compare these to the existing ones? And tell us where we're wrong. So that's the most important thing. That's where this trust comes in. Because I have to be willing to get answers that are reliable, that really people can act on them. And the companies have to be willing to hear what I have to say, even if it's not
what they want to hear.
It's not what they're hoping to hear, but it becomes a yes and moment. Yes, this isn't what you were expecting, and we know where you've gotten to at this point. Let's see where we can make changes to improve various parts.
In some of the podcasts, we have discussed the importance of collaboration today and the change from prior years where collaboration was not as important as it is today. The reason of this conversation and the opportunity to bring back the good things about research and development, because at some point in the past, when I do my studies, I look and see how companies were so into new technologies, new materials, new research.
Right.
Then we had a little time where manufacturing and research went overseas or to other countries.
Right.
And then now I do feel in the U.S. that we have this need to bring back research and development, national production, manufacturing, as well as this combination between the research and development teams and the rest of the teams in the companies. What do you think about this new opportunity to develop the departments as well as manufacturing here in the U.S.?
Well, so you're absolutely right about what this change has been, and I think it's tempting to think, oh, it used to be so perfect and now it's not great. Because if you look at different industries, they had their golden age, and then they declined. But then there was another golden age for a different industry. So I just wanted to bring that up, that it's not quite so, it was perfect before and now it's not so great.
But it's also a little bit cyclical too. I mean, you have
Absolutely.
to allow and give some breathing room to these technologies. So it went back from research and development into production and marketing, because obviously we market really well. And after that, you go back to, and the thing is, there's like you go up and you plateau, and then you go up and you plateau.
Yeah, and that's a classic model for how industries actually work, and the R&D and bringing in, the next generation of the technology. One of the things that's happening right now is that many times new products have so many different functions so there has to be co-design, and you find out within companies, within universities, you just can't do it alone.
The iPhone is a great example of that. How many functions does an iPhone have?
How many functions does it have? And, I think you know I'm in microelectronics and semiconductor manufacturing, and particularly something called advanced packaging. So it's getting the signal in and out and the power in and out. One of the interesting things is that an iPhone has chips from so many different companies involved. So this has to be all co-designed to optimize the signal in and signal out, the power. People are writing papers and doing deep analyses just using the ChatGPT and OpenAI and others technologies. So those kinds of things is really important to remember. These products, they required thousands of people in different places working together to make it work.
Two things that are super important that just came up. One is sometimes it's good to have multiple manufacturers into a product because it's harder to hack it. But then at the same time, diversity of or collaboration between cultures to develop a product is also complex. I heard before that you appreciate the dedication that some of us from Colombia have into research in the school, but then how do you feel diversity in not only in cultures but different subjects of education do help research and development and companies to bring products to the market?
So with respect to different cultures, so one of the big areas that I see was a major difference in the past is beginning to be more uniform. It's just this idea of sustainability and protecting the planet Earth when we're doing manufacturing. So when I first did environmental engineering research, I was in high school, and we had to go collect water from the streams and tributaries of the Mississippi River to see what they were dumping. But you had to go after midnight because that's when they dumped things. And so what I'm seeing is that there's still a global diversity of how people understand what their responsibilities are to planet Earth and to the people around them. But I'm beginning to see that there's more recognition that personally that's our responsibility.
Totally. I want to dig deeper in that topic because as a psychologist and also connected with a lot of engineers creating new products and new technology, new devices, even as you mentioned with iPhone and others, I also see a lot of trash in the world, like mountains of trash. And we discussed, 5 years ago about how a lot of minerals there, a lot of richness even in the inside of the devices, but it's super hard to collect and also is at this moment, if I understand well, they're in Africa and other places are having a huge impact in their ecosystems. And you taught me some incredible concept named the life cycle of the product. So how we could enhance or improve the awareness about this concept, and how we could, as creators or new producers or company builders, engage and incorporate that concept in our daily life and in daily life of the products.
So one of the things that really struck me years ago was the fact that the initial design of the product and establishing what materials and processes were going to be used for the product determines 90% of its life cycle impact. So if you think about the life cycle of a product, we keep going back to the iPhone, right? All the mineral, there's a lot of gold in iPhones there, which you know very well. The issue, zinc, but I think of gold as the iconic one because the environmental damage that happens in the mining of gold is really detrimental, and it overwhelms many of the other life cycle impacts. So the life cycle goes from, the initial design, you get all the raw materials, you manufacture the raw materials, you bring the different pieces of the product together, eventually you assemble it into a product that you can use, you sell it to someone, and then they use it, and then the question is, what happens to it then? So the life cycle, extra people can use it. I can give it to my brother who doesn't have the newest, or is new a phone. So the life cycle has many different components.
Because we can bring two things that I feel are important here. The first is that from the research and development initiative, or from the beginning, that department can reduce the amount of waste through sustainable design. As you mentioned before, I like the word reusing more than recycling, and a lot of times research and development teams develop things to be recycled and not reused. So thank you for bringing that point up, because I've been all my professional career bringing the word of reusing as an important word. With the iPhone was a fantastic example. The first iPhone, they developed voice recognition, and I did have an initiative where I sent a lot of iPhones to Colombia for people that couldn't see to be able to use technology. Mm-hmm. Many of the students today are doctors and have made international education thanks to the reuse of the technology. Right. Every iPhone I purchased was on a pawn shop or something like that. And I remember the first ones I sent them cost me $280, and after that, I was sending iPhones with the same technology for $50. So it did help tremendously when we bring the word reuse into research and development. I know we are extending a lot. This conversation is fantastic. Any last words that you want to say to company builders that are trying to develop a research and development team, or that are trying to understand if there is a need for a budget on that subject?
So I really like the fact that you just brought up the idea. You went and got these phones, and you took the initiative to do this.
Yes, I did.
And so to set up an R&D function, it's going to require somebody to take the initiative and to be able to figure out how it's going to make a difference in their company. To find some concrete examples of how that's going to improve things. Just find a few. And one of the other things that I found working with graduate students, but working with people on the machines in the factory floor, they have amazing ideas. So for a company owner who's thinking about setting up R&D, don't forget your own workers, because they actually are living they're living this, not just some of it. They're living the processes day after day.
The answers are inside.
The answers are inside. You can find some outside, but the answers are inside. And I think sometimes we forget that incredible talent.
I got it's kind of, I'm sorry, but
yeah.
you're saying something philosophical, really deep. The answer is inside, not just for the companies, but also, it's kind of Delphi oraculus, and the beautiful expression, because it's useful not just for company builders, but I think for everyone. Yeah, the answer is an insight.
One of the things I like about that is we started out with the notion of trust. And so it was trust between universities and professors and people who have companies. But there's a lot of trust that we can show, that we can use all around. And by that way, I think we can do amazing things. And trust is not, this is sort of a nerdy concept. Trust is not a conserved concept. We have as much trust as we're willing to show. So, and sort of like that, bringing in collaboration, there are truly endless possibilities.
I'm happy to see collaboration way more today than in the past when I first got to this country, and so forth and so on. So thank you very much for the conversation. Fantastic. Hopefully this is the first of many, and we can talk about other things in the future. But thank you very much. Thank you, Alejandro.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
I loved it. Thanks.